Good morning, Matt. I mean, everybody.
No, hey.
Hey. I lost my train of thought because I took this gulp of microwave coffee. It was so disgusting.
Oh,
This
well.
is Business Pants. Tuesday, a day after the holiday, day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Welcome, Matt.
Yeah, it feels like today's Monday,
Yeah, it does feel that way.
and I'm like confused. I've also got a head cold. I'm like all the kids have a head cold. It's that time of year.
I
You
feel like you've
throughout
had a
your
head cold
back.
for
I mean,
months.
literally,
Yeah,
we
my
are
back.
two old,
I know.
crotchety men now.
I tried to demonstrate to my daughter a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar skyhook yesterday at her school gym, and I think that one simple motion, which seems very fluid, I think it hurt my back.
I'm not gonna lie. You look like the IT guy to IT guys, and the idea of you doing a sky hook
Oh,
is
I have a great skyhook. I do. See, like my daughter, I was too tall too early, so they always stuck me underneath the basket. I had to do something.
What do we got on the agenda today? Oh, we're
Yeah,
changing format. Can I say at the beginning, because we don't say this enough,
yeah.
subscribe, rate us. We are Business Pants. We are Free Float Media. We are the news that doesn't suck. The business news that doesn't suck. Is that what we go with? Is that our?
Yeah,
That's what we go
and
with.
even if you're not completely enamored, tell a few friends who
We
might need
really
some.
could use the sharing because I do know that there is one other person. I've been saying we have one listener. Now we
Yeah,
have two because they told me on LinkedIn. So, like, both of you, could you please share this with your friends?
yeah. Thank you.
All right, let's get into the agenda.
What you were talking about, an agenda change? What were you talking about?
Oh yeah, we have a quick agenda change, but I'll say it when we get to Matt
All right.
makes.
So the day after the weekend, we usually do a weekend catch up, um, and we have a bunch of stories there, just stuff we've missed over the last 3 or 4 days. But today, our headline stories are the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, a little bit of an impeachment trial going on in the United States, and a new
Touch.
virus, a new world scary virus.
I love a good epidemic. And then Matt makes. So we're gonna shift up. I've been doing Matt
Yeah.
makes every single show for us,
Tell us.
but instead I'm gonna do number, a stat, or chart of the day kind of thing, and then we're gonna save a big Matt makes for the end of the week. I'm working on a big one
Okay.
this week. We'll see if this format works. That'll allow me more time to actually, do something that is more thought out. Because Lord knows I
A
don't think
big,
anything out in advance.
a big professorial Matt makes on
I'm
Thursdays.
gonna dump a Matt makes right on your head on Thursday this week. So let's
And
uh, let's
let's get
uh,
into it.
let's let's get into it. We're starting with stakeholders, right?
Headlines. Yeah, yeah.
Here we go.
Uh, the World Economic Forum's annual conference in Davos, Switzerland. Can you believe that all this and it's Davos is just a ski resort in Switzerland? How embarrassing is that? It's a ski resort.
And we went
But
skiing
anyway,
this weekend. Can I just say
yeah,
that
yeah.
skiing is you have to be incredibly wealthy to ski. Like
Yo,
it is
don't
nuts.
don't get me going on that. Yeah, yeah. The official theme of the 2020 meeting is skiers rule. No, it's not. It's stakeholders for a cohesive and sustainable world. So the focus is on renewing the concept of stakeholder capitalism to overcome income inequality, societal division, and the climate crisis. Forum founder and executive chairman Klaus Schwab said business has now to fully embrace stakeholder capitalism, which means not only maximizing profits, but to use their capabilities and resources in cooperation with government and civil society to address the key issues of this decade. So that's the official line, Matt. So
Is the implication there that they've never done that before?
it does feel like a lot of that. Yeah. So with in coordination with the business roundtable's focus on stakeholders in this past August. And Larry Fink, we talked about it last week. His letter to CEOs about the climate crisis. Yeah, it does feel like all the white men have decided that this is we're going to finally have a discussion about this. I don't know. What do you? Is that your cynical take?
Well, so there's a bunch of you can watch Davos live if you need some way to fall asleep, because it is every terrible conference that I've ever been to just live streamed in Switzerland that you can't attend, but is like millionaires and billionaires attend. So effectively, you can watch crappy conferences on live TV that billionaires go to and be self-assured that billionaires attend crappy conferences. There are streams of like content there that are just about stakeholders, and some of the speakers on these conferences include like the CEO of Bank of America talking about
Yeah.
stakeholders. Now, when I saw that, it does strike me that like not mildly ironic that Bank of America, which received a giant bailout and was a center of, a giant shitstorm for the global economy, one of the centers, who has been sued for discriminating against veterans and people of color in their mortgage practices, among other things, is talking on a panel about how stakeholders matter for like the future of capitalism.
Right. I
They're
think that's yeah. This is what I think draws attention to or to a lot of people's cynicism over these topics, right? Is that I, I I think people are already jumping into the ideas that is this just more corporate greenwashing, which greenwashing meaning that it's good PR, right?
it's fine. And I think actually the focus on this, it's fine if everybody wants to focus on that. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with the conversation. It's just like greenwashing is cool. You want to have that? You want to do that? Cool. But it really means that the people, like if you're an investor and you have any money at stake and you care about this, you really need some output. You really need to understand like how to value stakeholders. Like you can't, like greenwashing gets exposed through understanding the output of companies and like their effect on greeny stuff. Stakeholder capitalism is like unexplored territory in some way when it comes to valuing a company, which makes it really easy for companies to talk about how stakeholders matter because there are no metrics on the other end to show how to value a company based on their stakeholders, right?
Right. So more territories to be unaccountable in.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the stuff we're working on here actually feels super accidentally useful because I don't know that it exists in a lot of places. Like it's super great talking points without any sort of accountability. And Free Float Media and Business Pants is about to hold you accountable. So both of our listeners, after you hear what we have to say, go hold a company accountable, I guess. Is that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I feel like 2020 is a good time to start the next the next phase of these discussions, and that we've created awareness of things like women in leadership, climate, the climate change and sustainability and all that. We've pushed the business roundtable into talking about stakeholders and all that. So what about this next decade being a focus on creating global standards to which we can speak about this stuff, right? And also holding people and corporations accountable for all this instead of just talking about it and blah 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 blah. This is I don't know. I'm trying to be hopeful and think maybe this decade represents an accountability decade.
You're such a loser optimist. I'm not even gonna.
Okay.
I would also to feed the dystopia that is
Yeah.
Davos's reality. I'll, across, if you're watching our live stream, right now. Across the ticker just a second ago was a report that Swiss police believe that Russians infiltrated Davos dressed as plumbers to bug the conversations.
Well, that's fine. That's like good Cold War stuff. That's what Russians do.
In other news, Facebook bugged Davos by allowing everybody onto their platform. So,
Ooh. Ooh. All right. Let me get back to the headlines. What else is happening today? The impeachment trial of President Donald Trump
a
is set
little
to be.
light impeachment.
Yeah. Uh, is set to begin at 1 o'clock Eastern time here in the United States, with Democrats accusing him of high crimes and misdemeanors. So while there's very little risk here that the Republican-controlled Senate will vote to remove Trump from office, the trial itself is probably key, maybe to the presidential elections coming up. So,
do you really think so?
It could. Oh, okay. It could be. The reason why I mention this. Here's why I mention this, because I feel like I have to, because it's a big deal historically. But who is speaking today at the World Economic Forum other than Greta?
DJT.
And the CEO of Bank of America? Yeah, exactly. The man being impeached here in the United States. Big baby Trump. So that's something. The other thing is just that we keep talking about is that what I'm wondering now is that, we keep talking about populism and Trump representing a right populism. We talk about the left populism. And I wonder, now that we're in this 2020 seems to be the year of the stakeholder, what happens to stakeholder rules and stakeholder revolution in the United States if Trump wins again? Are we effectively never going to talk about it again? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, his speech this morning was basically, you're all climate alarmists. No one cares. The economy's great. That was his. I mean, like, he talked for an hour, and I'm pretty sure those were the only talking points.
Well, he also said that we all should go at it alone. Each country should take care of itself.
Yeah. Well, that's super.
Well, we don't have to get into that, but isn't it great that the World Economic Forum is espousing this stakeholder nonsense, and yet its key speaker today is Donald J. Trump.
They're just doing that. Like, how else are you going to get eyeballs? Does anybody care what billionaire? Like, we're in OK billionaire moment
cares.
right now. Does anybody really listen to what Davos has to say?
I guess not. Trump, I don't know.
Trump goes to Davos and talks, and he'll tweet about it, and that will be enough for Davos. They won't have to do any marketing.
I mean, I got to be honest. You're more of a conference guy than me. I don't even know why is Davos even a thing? Why?
Because billionaires go and millionaires go. That's it.
But so it's like the Cannes Film Festival. It just became something somehow.
Speaking of Cannes Film Festival, there was Netflix news. Just to compare and contrast the types of news that we get to see here at Business Pants. This is a bit of a tangent, but it was funny to me. I did see, like, Facebook's in the news in congressional hearings for, like, basically violating the privacy of every user it's ever had, the 2 billion users it has. You know what Netflix was in the news for?
What's that?
The French are finally warming up to the idea of Netflix for films. That was what I saw in the news. So Davos is just like, it's like an elitist clubby thing. It's like the Milken Institute.
Well, the French are smart. I mean, the Netflix is going to hire a bunch of people there, but the French are ensuring that Netflix is going to be airing French content. So they're not just bringing over American content. They're keeping their cultural product growing. Anyway.
And amidst all that dystopia, there's even more dystopia with, like, the speaker who came, like, after Trump. It was like minutes later, wasn't it?
Who was that?
Wasn't it didn't the Chinese, there was like a Chinese ambassador or something?
Speaking of China, Matt, there's a new virus going around.
Yeah, it's like the dystopia just gets around today.
So the death toll from a mysterious flu-like virus in China climbed to 6 as new cases surged beyond 300. As authorities fretted about the added risk from millions of Chinese traveling for the Lunar New Year holiday. So around the world, airports are tightening security already. The World Health Organization is deciding, I think, tomorrow whether this is a global crisis. And I can see that the stock markets are already down. People are getting that SARS fever again, Matt.
Oh, it's so fun. Somewhere in Davos, the billionaires are all lining up for Bezos's Mars trip right now. I think that's really what
Yeah.
Davos is about: escaping
Yeah.
impeachment and SARS like
Yeah.
viruses.
All cynicism and laughter aside, that I have no doubt about. No, really. I mean, whether those people love or hate Uncle Jeff, the trips to the escape to Mars, this idea, it's almost like that got to be their heaven, right? Like that's their right.
A barren, waterless wasteland.
Yes.
That's like a 30-year journey from Earth.
All right, let's do our weekend catch up now.
Let's
Let's get
catch up.
That's a 2019 harp, man.
I know. Like
That's
time
fine.
is a factor here. If only I had a millionaire or billionaire who's funding us so that I could get a better harp sound.
Well, Bono, who's probably at the World Economic Forum, he's probably listening to the show
Is he
because
one? He's the other listener?
well, he's close. Switzerland's not that far away from Finland, so I'm sure he's he.
By the way,
Oh no, don't
another
tell me.
side note. We hit
Yeah.
number 4 in the Philippines.
Oh, geez. Well,
No shit.
we had a lot of Filipino colleagues at MSCI, so maybe our MSCI brethren are.
I think that's it. So shout out
Yeah.
to our MSCI ex
Yeah,
MSCI
good people
colleagues
over
in the
there.
Philippines. We love you.
Yes, we do. All right, so weekend catch up is basically just finding some of the bigger stories that we missed that we'll probably keep talking about this week, but I didn't want them to go without mentioning. Yesterday, the highly anticipated extradition hearing of Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou began yesterday in Vancouver. So she's been detained there since her arrest in December 2018, believe it or not. A judge will decide whether the crime she's accused of in the U.S., deceiving banks into clearing transactions in Iran through a subsidiary company, constitutes a crime in Canada. So this is all a lovely part of the Cold War with China that we keep talking about here. I don't know. I mean, do you feel a significance of this trial, or what are you thinking on this one?
Honestly, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'll be impressed when China detains Mark Zuckerberg.
Hey, why? How is that inconceivable?
I mean,
Like 15 years from now, or I don't know. Why is that so far fetched?
I don't. It's like
Are we
so
are we
worried
the
about
only
China.
ones who get to be silly?
Russians are bugging Davos, and we're worried about Huawei.
I'd be more surprised if Russians weren't bugging Davos. I don't know. I mean, maybe I grew up as a Cold War baby. Isn't that what Russians do? I kind of respect them for that. They bug shit, right? They want to know. They want to know what's going on. They don't seem to breed Zucks and Larry Pages, so they bug stuff.
Sean Connery's James Bond could not agree more.
Next story, Sundar Pichai, the new head of Google and parent company Alphabet, has called for artificial intelligence to be regulated. He wrote in the Financial Times that it is too important not to impose regulation, but argued for a sensible approach, which is corporate speak for let us tell you which laws we're comfortable with before making the laws.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so isn't that basically what's going on? And I think this kind of goes in line with Zuck wanting certain things to be regulated, is that they don't want to be held accountable for everything that they're about to fuck up even more. Like, is that kind of?
Yeah, I think I'm with you, because like this reminds me of when Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan's preeminent CEO, the one lone survivor from the 2008 crisis from the major banks, he pleaded with, quote unquote, with regulators in like 2011, 2012, 2013-ish, that they needed to regulate data security and privacy because, JP Morgan was under attack, and then subsequently they argue with Europe when they put in place data security rules because it wasn't the ones that they necessarily want. Like it's a parallel. Regulate this stuff the way we want you to regulate it so that we can comply easily without actually paying for anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does feel when Zuck's having secret, Chick-fil-A dinners with Donald J. Trump. It does feel that way. Our next weekend catch up. Speaking of the big tech, Microsoft has unveiled a response to climate change. So last week, they announced a program that goes beyond offsetting carbon emissions. It wants to erase its entire historical carbon footprint by 2050. A target that no other company has set before. The plan involves becoming net carbon negative by 2030, which means not only ending the emission of carbon into the atmosphere, but also removing it. It also includes creating a climate innovation fund that will invest $1 billion over the next 4 years into developing carbon removal technology. I know you have some thoughts about this, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah,
You believe in it?
more than thoughts too. What I did for Matt Makes was actually a number around this.
Oh,
I
okay.
want to be cynical about this because it's my natural
Yeah.
state.
Okay.
But frankly, this is
So-
kind of awesome.
So are we waiting? We'll talk about it, Matt Makes.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it really
Okay.
briefly. I'm going to give a number, and it's going to sound like a cynical number, but the reality is, I think what they've done is actually an aggressive plan to reduce, not just reduce the carbon, because they're kind of like a, by all accounts, they're sort of a middling. I called some people that I know, and they're like a middling carbon performer overall. They're not like best in their industry kind of thing, but effectively, what they've put themselves in a position to do is to reduce their carbon backwards to 1975, and that to me is kind of like a unique, interesting proposition.
So what do carbon emissions look like in the tech industry? How would you characterize?
They're mostly low. I mean, like the emissions are largely derived from server farms. They don't have much in the way of they don't spew a lot of shit into the air. Is basically what it is.
So is the sense here that this won't be so challenging?
Okay, so for a relative standpoint, Microsoft in 2018 actually emitted through its own operations and the energy it brought in. I won't go into what the scopes are right now, but it like 4.1 million metric tons of carbon, which is the equivalent of 4.1 million elephants worth of carbon into the air. And
so put that in context.
For context, ExxonMobil in the same time emitted 122 million metric tons. So ExxonMobil is
but 4 million. That's a lot for. I mean, ExxonMobil, that doesn't surprise me, but Microsoft still, right? I mean,
I mean, you are talking about a factor of 30, right? Like they're 30 times less carbon emitted by Microsoft than ExxonMobil in an absolute sense. So it's not a lot relative to a lot of major industry emitters, and that's also relying on ExxonMobil and Microsoft are self-reporting those numbers. So yeah.
All right. Yeah. Here's my hope: is that
you have hopes
eventually. You have hopes? Yeah. No, I am bizarrely the optimist. I always think that maybe one day one of these companies is going to land on some kind of a standard, something that becomes an industry standard, just some far-reaching plan like this. Because I don't believe in the American government to regulate this crap. So maybe someone will come up with something that just sticks, and other companies like, hey, I'll do that. Why not?
Yeah, I'll come back to the difficulty in actually achieving this. Let's go to the next. What else do we have in the catching up?
The next story, staying with our stakeholder 2020. Airbnb announced that it will think about all stakeholders when it comes to corporate governance, not just investors. The move represents Airbnb's take on the Business Roundtable's recommendations last year, which we've covered extensively. Airbnb is planning to hold a stakeholder day, which would look like a traditional annual shareholder meeting, except that everyone from customers to hosts to employees and others will be invited. I don't know what this means. I don't know why going to a meeting will be so important for them. It will also, and this is probably something I'm interested in. This is actually something maybe important. It will also change its compensation program, with factors important to stakeholders like progress on guest safety taken into account when bonuses are calculated. That, to me, Matt, that's the only number that ever is meaningful to me, that executives actually peg their pay to some of the crap they
I'm going to raise
pretend
my
to.
hand like I'm in middle school.
Yeah. Go
They
ahead.
didn't do that before.
Matt?
Guest safety was not a factor in compensation.
I know. Well, look, we talked about Boeing's compensation. CEO Dennis Muhlenberg, nothing. There's no part of his pay was tied to safety. So, yeah, companies, you'd think they'd be doing this. They don't do this. And let me add that the new CEO's pay at Boeing, nothing is tied to safety.
Oh, good. That worked out.
Finally, our last weekend catch up, and then we'll go into Matt Makes. Best Buy's board is investigating allegations of misconduct by its CEO, who, believe it or not, Matt, is a woman.
Fun.
Corey Berry. I know this is I always shocked when I learn of a new female CEO. The board received an anonymous letter and has hired outside counsel to investigate. The letter alleged that Berry engaged in a romantic relationship with another company executive. You know a little bit more about this, so.
Well, what I know is basically that she, before she was CEO, started a relationship with somebody who actually used to be her boss. And
so he should be in trouble.
And they were romantically involved, and he left the company to go be he didn't leave the company out of like disgrace because he got manipulated by, a senior. He left the company to be COO of 24-Hour Fitness. And she sort of left holding the bag, I guess, as she rose up to be CEO, and now it's against company policy. Their prior CEO had the same thing actually happen, and he was a dude. I get that they're equally applying the policies that they have at Best Buy, but doesn't it feel sort of like, I don't know, it makes me mildly squirmy because it was like he was her boss and they started a relationship. Now she's CEO and she gets investigated off of an anonymous. You got to do it. And
can't we give like female CEOs like bigger football helmets? Like I don't remember Wes Welker. He had a lot of concussions in the NFL, and when he came back, he got this like giant helmet. It's like extra padded helmet. I feel like female CEOs need something like that.
No, they don't. Here's
it's so impossible to get these jobs in the first place. Come on.
Here's the takeaway.
This is going to bring her down.
The takeaway here, I think, is male, female. It doesn't matter who you are. Do not fuck your coworkers. Just don't do that.
Right. But it was her boss.
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't like.
I guess you're right.
Just don't do it. Don't wait until you're like in a senior level to be like, okay, now I can't have relationships. You work with the person. I know you're in intimate quarters with the person all the time. And, it's easy to, especially when you start and you're young and like these are your coworkers, just don't sleep with your coworkers. Just don't do it. It's much easier that way because the day you become the CEO, someone's going to like write an anonymous letter. Like 20 years ago, you slept with your coworker. Now you're out. Like, just don't do it.
Oh,
it's just not great.
By the way, how about especially when you have a family with kids already?
Yeah, well.
All right, well, unfortunately for Best Buy, if this goes down poorly for Corey Berry, we'll see another female CEO in 2092. All right, let's go to Matt Makes. Those are our headlines.
So Matt Makes is going to be simple today. I'm going to make some numbers.
Yes.
We're going to keep it simple for the first couple of days. We'll do a deep dive on Thursday. So today I'm just making a number, and it's built off of what Microsoft pledged because it's fascinating to me. Now, I did an original.
Warn you people. I warn you listeners. When Matt says keep it simple, you know it.
I did an original version in which I went through all of the scopes of carbon emission and what they mean and like how carbon gets calculated. And I'm not a carbon expert. I actually talked to some people who were. I did a bunch of research, and then I realized, you know what? To keep this as simple as possible, we're going to do one kind of thing. Microsoft is pledged to basically remove all the carbon that it put in the atmosphere since it was founded in 1975. That was
Right.
Microsoft's pledge.
Well, not just what it put in, but also its supply network,
It
right?
effectively, like all the, yeah, it said every piece of carbon that it as a company has been involved with, whether it
Okay.
spewed them itself, it used electricity, or in its supply chain.
Sure.
That
Okay.
means like when they buy a part from, Wisconsin and they ship it to Seattle, the truck, spews carbon on the way.
Okay.
That was their effective pledge. So what that has meant was, what that meant to me was getting as much data about the carbon that they have put into the atmosphere as I could, and then estimating how can I make this like accessible to a human being? Well, the way to make it accessible is through trees, okay? A tree,
Yeah.
your basic tree, and there's so much science around this, it's not even worth going into. So we're going to shorthand it all. We're going to say your average tree. This is not true of an individual tree. So don't tweet at me saying like, well, deciduous trees in Pacific Northwest are...
No, you should. You should tweet at him.
Yes, please actually tweet at me because then I would actually feel useful. Your average tree sucks 7 tons. Your adult tree sucks 7 tons of carbon out of the air per year. An adult tree.
7 tons of carbon. Okay.
And we already discussed that Microsoft's put about when you added supply chain in, you're talking about 16 million tons of carbon into the air. Okay.
Is that per year or since
That's per year.
1975?
That
Okay.
is in 2018. That's not per year
Okay.
since 1975. So you can
Okay.
make an estimate going backwards because you can see the trend of carbon's growing as Microsoft gets bigger and bigger as a company. Carbon gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The estimate I came up with, the number of the day, the Matt makes number of the day, is 19 million trees. That's
Okay. Yeah.
that number
What?
represents the number of trees that adult trees that Microsoft would have to plant to suck all the carbon it's emitted since 1975 out of the air in 1
How do you
year.
plant an adult tree?
Well, it's tricky. You have to not do that. But just for point of reference, that represents
Yeah.
about 120,000 acres of tree. So I did find this lovely plot of land, and I've tweeted this out already. It's Marathon in Brewster County, Big Bend Country, Texas. 117,000 acres of land for sale for just under $86 million. Microsoft, if you are listening, get in touch with it is the name of the company is James Harrison King. It's like a King Land and Water or something. King Land and Water. There's a lovely piece of land in Texas. You can buy, install about 19 million trees. You are net carbon zero since 1975. That's my number of the day.
Wow. Okay. 19 million trees.
19 million trees. It is ambitious. I love what they're doing. It's super cool.
Well,
Here's your short
I just
victory.
read that in my home state of Maine there are 24 billion trees. So I feel like they can do 19 million trees. I feel like they can get there.
Doable.
Right? Yeah. It does sound doable. Let's get it, Microsoft. You're $1 trillion company. All right. Is that really it for Matt Makes?
That's really it. We're going short.
Wow.
I told you we're going short.
That was good. 19 million trees. I love it.
19 million trees will be another number of the day tomorrow, and on Thursday I have a super deep dive on one of my favorite companies of all time as a case study in Boeing. So we'll come back at that.
All right. Talk to you tomorrow.
That is Damion Rollis. I am Matt Moscardi. This was Business Pants. Thank you to our team here, the two Courtneys, Dan Regat-Schnig, our music by Todd Hovanek and the Asset Clowns, our art by John Walsh. Subscribe, rate, share. We have 2 listeners now, and I don't think they're both in the Philippines. We're number 4 in the Philippines. Finland, you dropped off the map for us. Please put us back at number 1. Please put us back at number 1. We'll see what happens this week. But we need your support. So share us with a friend, let them know, and we'll come back at you tomorrow. Thanks, Damion.
Thanks, Matt.